Rogers and I'm Honorary President of Revival, and we're located here in the channel of the River Ivel, about 1 kilometre down from its source and just downstream of Norton Mill, which is behind me. Chalk streams are fed from chalk aquifers, and the water in them should flow at a roughly constant rate throughout the year at a constant temperature of about 10 to 11 degrees centigrade, and in a pure chalk spring the water has a mineral-rich but nutrient-poor composition. It flows down through the channel of the river over a gravel bed and is very well aerated and supports a particularly unique ecosystem. Unfortunately, you can see from here that the river is not flowing at all at the moment. It has some rather muddy, stagnant water in the bottom and is full of leaves that are falling from the trees due to the warmth and the heat of the recent very dry summer. And the river is also full of muddy sediment. And this is clogging up the pore spaces between the gravel bed and therefore stifling the ecosystem that would otherwise be thriving here. The chalk stream ecosystem is unusual because of the nature of the water, which, as I've said before, is a constant temperature and a particular composition, and therefore supports a specific range of species, both plant species and animal species. And the signature creature that we would love to see back in this chalk stream would be the brown trout. This river used to support brown trout fisheries until about a century ago, but the continued exploitation of the river, largely for water abstraction, has compromised that status, and we now see the river as it is, a very sad shadow of what it should really be looking like.
My name is Keith Fitzpatrick Matthews. I'm the curator of North Hertfordshire Museum, and my background is as an archaeologist. My interest is in how human societies have developed over time, and one of the things I find fascinating are the very, very long-term stories. And this is where the River Ivel is particularly fascinating, because we have evidence from much of human history that people were doing things in and around the river. What's clear from the archaeology and the historical evidence is that the River Ivel has been an extremely significant element in the local landscape for thousands of years. People in prehistory were attracted to the springs, partly for religious and magical reasons, but probably also for practical reasons. It's a good source of clean drinking water. And from the Roman period onwards, it's been economically important. Provided water for settlements, like the farmstead at Black Horse Farm, and also bathhouses, like the bathhouse at Radwell Villa. From the medieval period onwards, it's providing turning power for the mills established along its banks. So it's been significant in many, many ways. It's always been more than just a chalk stream. It's had significance and meaning to the people who've lived alongside it.
My name's Richard Meredith Hardy. I live at Radwell Mill, which is the third mill on the River Ivel, about 1.5 miles from the source at Baldock. The river here has been getting worse and worse and worse. I've lived here all my life, and it's been no flow in 2018-19, and then this year it's been absolutely no flow again. The upper river between above here at Radwell to Baldock, it's dry. The river is dry. And the reason for that is because the water company takes 13 million litres a day out of some boreholes that are immediately above the source of the river. The springs were very, very powerful springs at Ivel Springs. I think it's quite possible to say that that there were never less than 2 million litres a day came out of those springs. And yet now it's dry, bone dry, and has been since April. And it's because the water companies are abstracting that 13 million litres a day that they're abstracting would otherwise come down our river. It's a terrible state of affairs.
Affinity Water is permitted to abstract under licence up to 14.8 million litres a day from the aquifer. It regularly takes out in the region of 13 million litres a day, making the Upper Ivel one of the most over-abstracted chalk streams in the world. The springs have dried up, the upper reaches are dry. There is more water at the bottom rather than the top of the river, due to recycled sewage water and tributaries joining the river. Downstream at Offord, part of the flow is diverted to Gratham Reservoir, with the remainder continuing to ultimately flow into the North Sea.
I'm John Lawson. I'm a civil engineer specialising in water resources, and I've been helping Revival over the last few months in their struggles to renaturalise flows in the upper River Ivel. At the moment, the abstraction from the River Ivel represents about 50% of the natural water which is entering the ground, and that makes it pretty much the most over-abstracted chalk stream in the entire country. Now, we reckon that in order to get a reasonably naturalised flow, the percentage abstracted would have to be reduced from 50% to 10%. At present, Affinity Water take out about 12 or 13 million litres of water per day, so that would have to come down to something like 2.5 million litres of water per day. You would need to find another 10 million litres of water per day to replace the water that you're no longer taking from the ground. Well, fortunately, Anglian Water have got one of their largest reservoirs, Gratham Water, which is located about 30 kilometres downstream of Baldock on the River Ivel, and the reservoir gets its water by abstraction from the Great Ouse at a place called Offord. So what could happen is that the supplies currently being taken from the ground would be replaced by water taken from Gratham Water, and the River Ivel flows would improve, and they would flow back down into the River Ouse and could be re-abstracted to fill Gratham Reservoir. So in effect, you'd be moving the take of the water from underneath Baldock to Gratham Reservoir without actually losing any water in the process. Now, fortunately, there is an existing pipeline leading from Gratham Water back south to towards Baldock, and there is a new treatment works being built there, and so the supplies which currently come from the River Ivel could simply be replaced by the water coming up the new pipeline or the expanded pipeline into the new treatment works, and from there into supply. I've written a report analysing the current situation and putting forward this proposal. We've had meetings with both Anglian Water and Affinity Water, and they have agreed that this is a scheme which needs to be investigated as a matter of some priority, and there's been some agreement that there will be an investigation carried out within the next year or so, we hope.
So moving on to the possible bright future. If abstraction were reduced to a sustainable level of 2.4 million litres a day, as recommended in the catchment-based approach, the following would happen. The springs would start flowing again, regenerating the upper dry reaches of the chalk stream. Biodiversity, for example the iconic brown trout, would recover. There would be increased flow the length of the river. Gratham Water would also benefit from a now flourishing River Ivel, and replacement water supplies to meet local needs could be brought in from Gratham Water using largely existing pipework. So finally, just to re-summarise the benefits, this is a neat, circular, low-carbon solution. There may be no additional water requirement, particularly if the storage capacity of the aquifer were to be used to top up Gratham Water in emergency drought conditions. It is low monetary cost, and furthermore, the Ivel could be a test case for saving chalk streams nationally. In short, this solution is good for communities, biodiversity, and water companies.